This is assignment 2, the ROD support for AEDD 105 CAD graphics. This is what we'll be drawing, 3 views of the same object. The first decision I need to make is what type of drawing to open, either imperial or metric. If I take a look at this area here, I've got to decide, is this inches or millimeters? If this were millimeters, this object would be very small, so inches makes more sense. I could also take a look at the position of the zeros in these dimensions. If there were zeros at the front, they're called leading zeros, this would likely be a metric drawing, but where they are trailing zeros, zeros at the end, this is most likely an imperial drawing. So I'm going to start by opening a new file, and next to the open button, clicking the down caret and choosing Open with No Template Imperial. The next decision I need to make has to do with the precision that is shown in my dimensions. I've got a precision to the hundredths, or 2 decimal places. So the next change I'll make in my drawing is in the units command. UN is the alias. Under length, I want to change the precision to match my handout. So if I click on that list and choose 2 decimal places, that will match. Then OK. The next decision I need to make is to decide, do I have enough space in my drawing editor to work with? In this direction, I've got 4 inches plus 2 inches, the space between views, plus 2.25 inches, or 8 1/4 inches. In this direction, I've got 2.5 inches plus 2 inches between views, and then 2 1/4, or 6.75, 6 3/4 inches. So if I check my limits command, the lower left corner, this area right here, should stay at 0, 0. So I'll press enter to move on in the command. It's the upper right corner I would change if I wanted to make an adjustment to the drawing editor space. And we've decided I've got 8 inches this direction, plus a little bit more, 6 3/4 inches in this direction, plus a little bit more. So the default settings will work just fine. The last thing I need to set up to begin my drawing are the layers that I'll need. So I'll need edges for the object, an object layer. I'll need a hidden layer with a hidden line type for hidden features. And I'll also need a center layer for center marks and center lines. If I open up my layer manager, I'll create those new layers. First layer OBJ, comma, the next layer HID, the last layer CEN. I'll refresh those to get them in alphabetical order. Under line type, I need to load both a center line type and a hidden line type. So I'll click continuous on the center layer and then load. I'll scroll down and look for center to, the half scale center line type, and then I'll hold my control key down, and further down the list I'll choose hidden to, the half scale hidden line type. These work best for the smaller objects that we're drawing here. My center layer is the one that's highlighted, so I'll choose center to and OK. And the center layer is assigned to that line type. The next line type I need to add is for the hidden layer, so I'll click continuous and then hidden to, and those line types have been assigned. I'll go back now and change some colors. For the center layer, I'd like to have that layer be magenta, and for the hidden layer, we'll assign cyan. I'm going to leave my object layer white. The last change I need to make to my layers has to do with the object layer line weight. The edges of your object are a heavy line weight, 0.50 millimeters. And then my layers are set. Since my object layer is highlighted, I'm going to click Set Current, and now when I begin my drawing, what I draw for lines will be on that layer. One other thing to check before I begin my drawing is that my drawing status toggles are on. My polar tracking, blue, is on, object snap tracking, and then object snap. If I open up the list of running object snaps, I want to make sure that I have endpoint, midpoint, center, and quadrant will also be useful in addition to intersection and extension. Those are checked, so they're on. I am ready to draw. I'm going to draw first the outline of each of the three views using the line command. L for line. This line in the bottom corner of my front view on the left-hand side has a specific start coordinate, which is 0.25, comma, 0.25. If you're seeing that line start slightly off your screen, remember you can press and hold on the wheel on your mouse to pan over and see where that line starts. Now I'm using my polar tracking to track along the bottom edge of that view, and I know from the dimensions that that edge is 4 inches long. So as soon as I'm tracking in this direction, I can enter the length, direct distance entry. I'm going to swing my polar tracking straight up now and enter the length of this line, 2.5. Heading across the top of the front view, I have two choices. I can either enter the length of this edge, or if I hover over the endpoint of the bottom edge but don't click, and instead track up, where those two tracking lines intersect, I can click and know that that length will match the bottom edge. In this view, notice in the line command I can close the shape by using the close option on my command line. This will bring me back to the start point. Press the space bar to start the last command that I used. These views are 2 inches apart. If I hover over the endpoint on the right-hand side of my front view and start to track, I'll enter that distance, and I'll start the next line exactly 2 inches from the front view. The bottom edge of this right side view is 2.25 inches long. Swing my cursor up. I can either direct distance entry this length, or I can hover over that endpoint on the front view. Remember, these are the same object, just different views, so these should match. The length of this top edge in the right side view is 0.5. To enter this edge correctly, I need to do a little math. I'm coming down this edge here. I know the total length of this view is 2.5, but I'm going to stop 0.5 or half an inch short, so this edge is actually 2 inches long. Track to the side, hover over that endpoint, and click where those intersect, and then close. I'll do the outline for the top of the view now. Hover over this endpoint and track up, 2-inch spacing. Hover over this endpoint and track up, and click where those intersect, the bottom edge now of the top view. Track up. This distance is 2.25 inches. Use my object snap tracking again to track from this endpoint, and click, and then close. Now I have the outlines of each of my views. I'll start to fill in some details, starting with this edge in the front view that matches this height. Start my line command, hover over that endpoint, click when I intersect that edge on the front, and click again at the other intersection. and escape. This line in the top view I will make by tracking from this endpoint down 0.5 and then end at this intersection point. I'm going to create the half circle here in the top view by starting with the circle command. C for circle. Click on the midpoint to start that circle and enter the radius information. Now I need to clean these up a bit, so I'll use the trim command. Using the trim command, it will ask me what I want to use as cutting edges. I'm going to trim this portion of the line away where it intersects with the circle, and also this portion of the circle where it intersects with this line edge. TR for trim. I'll select both of those as my cutting edges. Enter. When I get close to the area I want to trim, you'll see a preview and a red X. When I click on that, that's what will trim away. And that command is finished. Enter. In my front view, I also have a circle to represent the hole that goes through the part. Start the circle command. That dimension places the center of the circle 1 inch directly above the midpoint of that line. What I have for the size of that circle is not a radius but a diameter. Make sure that when you enter information about the diameter, you use that feature to start. Also on this front view, I need to trim away the corners and replace them with arcs of a radius of 0.5. I'll do that with the fillet command, F for fillet. Start by going into the radius option and entering the information from the dimension on your handout. I also have a fillet on both sides, so I'm going to take advantage of the multiple option in this command. Then it will ask me to select one edge. When I hover over the next edge, I get a preview of what that will look like, and when I click on it, it will trim away that corner and replace it with an arc. And do the same on the other side. And enter or escape to finish that command. I have 2 more edges in the front view to create on the object layer, and those come from these intersection points here in the top view. Start my line command, hover and track down to the intersection point and click, Spacebar, hover and track, click, and then escape. I'm going to change layers now to my hidden layer. I need to fill in the information on the hidden feature, which is the hole in the top and the right side view. By tracking lines from the quadrant point on the circle in my front view, I can easily fill in those edges. Spacebar to start the line command, click, escape, spacebar, track up, click, and escape. I have one more hidden edge in my right side view, and it is the depth of the curved feature shown in the top. I can't track from there, but I do know the radius. So I can track from here instead. Hover over this endpoint and start to track. Enter the distance that line needs to start, and then use my polar tracking to track straight down to that intersection point and escape. The last pieces of these views are the center marks and center lines, so I'll switch to that layer. I have 2 commands that control the size and the appearance of a center mark. DIMCEN is where we'll enter the variable that controls that appearance. The variable we'll use is negative 0.0625. DCE will place a center mark on an arc or a circle. If I click on the edge of that circle, my center mark will appear. The negative gives me extension lines in addition to the plus sign or the crosshairs in the middle of that pattern. The 0.0625 is the space between the gaps and also how far beyond that curved feature the centerline extension marks will extend. I have another center mark to place here on this arc, DCE, and click on the arc. I need to make changes to 3 of these extension lines. There is no arc in this position, so this line can be erased. I'll select it and use my delete key. These lines here are a bit too long and they're overlapping the object edge. I want to make sure that there's a clear gap so it's easy to distinguish the center mark extension line, which is giving me information about this object, and the edge of the object itself. So I know that this line has gone beyond 0.0625, and I also want to make a gap of that same size. If I select this line and click on the grip that's overlapping the object edge, I can use that to stretch that line and make it shorter. And if I double that measurement to 0.125, that will give me the gap that will match my center mark pattern. So I'll do the same on the other side. Select the line, click on the grip, track in the direction I want that to be shortened, and enter the distance. I have some center lines that I need to copy in different positions in each view. So I'm going to copy from my existing center mark. CO for copy. With a blue selecting window, I'll very carefully select just the horizontal lines that I'll place in the right side view. And I'll line them up with the midpoint of these lines as my base point. If I hover and track over the hidden line and come down to where those intersect and then click, I've placed those lines exactly in the middle. I'll do the same with the vertical lines for both the bottom of this view and also the top view. Copy. Create a selecting window around just the vertical lines. Enter. Click on the midpoint as my base point. In this position, I can track from the midpoint of my object edge and click. Track over from the midpoint on my hidden line in the top view and click, and then hit Escape. And my views are drawn. This completes the 3 views of the RodSupport.